Hey everybody and welcome to this exciting tutorial. My name is Cedric and you're watching Bandite. How is everybody doing? So, today I'm going to show you how to create a cool crystal material inside Eevee. So, a real-time crystal. I'm just going to show you real quickly what one of the finished results look like. We have this nice sparkly crystal here with refraction. And we can also control a lot of these settings. I also used it in my previous artwork. So if you're wondering how I made those nice crystals in Eevee, then here you go. Let's just jump right into it. So we have our basic shading layout here. You can select that by pressing shading up top. We're using Blender 2.82. And before we get starting to shade, I want to first check some render settings here. I want to enable bloom, and I also want to enable screen space reflections and refractions. So that's going to be important for this shader. Secondly, in the shader options here, I want to scroll down, and I want to enable screen space refraction. Alright, so first thing I want to create is the chromatic aberration of crystal. And I'm not going to do this super physically accurate because, especially inside Eevee, how it looks is more important than how it operates, right? So, the first thing we're going to do is delete the principal BSDF, and I'm going to add a refraction BSDF. Alright? So this is just your basic BSDF that refracts light, in this case from the environment texture onto the shader. By the way, this works best on low poly like crystal, right? Because like diamonds and crystals, they have a very flat surface, very hard edges. These aren't even beveled or anything. You can give them a very harsh bevel if you really want to go into detail, but it works best with flat surfaces. So now that we added the refraction BSDF, I'm gonna duplicate it twice, and we're actually gonna use an old trick here. Because we work inside a computer, we work with additive lights, which means our shader will combine everything coming in and combine it additively to have our shader correctly. So which means that if we would put this on R, which is one of the additive channels, and use G, green, and use blue, so just putting this on, let's zoom in here, 100 on the RGB channel, and then 010, 001. And if we then add these shaders to each other, so like, whoops, like this, and then like this, then we just get the same refraction BSDF. But now, what can we do with that? Let us add two value nodes, so we can control some of these settings all at once. So the top one, I'm gonna connect to the IOR of each node. And I'm just going to put this to 1.45, and now we have one value with which we can change the IOR, that's the index of refraction, for the refraction. Cool. Now I can, now to create the aberration, I want to offset the red and the blue channel by the same value to opposite sides. We add a converter math node. I'm going to put it down here. Actually, we can put it in between here. And we want to add a certain value to the IOR before it goes into the red channel. I'm going to duplicate it, do the same setup. So connect this, the value down here, and put this on subtract. So now with this value, if we press shift and drag, we can actually create a little bit of chromatic aberration. And this already looks super duper cool. So yeah, that's how you fake chromatic aberration. So to make this a little bit nicer looking, we're gonna put this in a group node. So we're gonna do shift right click drag, and we can connect these nodes up. And then we select everything except our input values and press Ctrl G. So now we have a nice node setup here, and we can even delete these two value nodes and put the input here on 1.45, and this one maybe 0.1. Or 0.02, let's say. So now inside the group, if we tab into it, we want to connect two more nodes to the group input here, namely the roughness And it's gonna auto name it, which is really nice. And the normal. So now we can control all these settings with just one node. In the node settings here, we can change the names. So the first one is going to be IOR. And the second one we're just going to call aberration. So now we have a nice node here, which we can increase the roughness if we want of the refraction. We can put it on normal here, which we will do later. And we can play with the IOR and the aberration here, which is really nice. So that's the refraction. Now we want to create some reflections on this to make it even nicer. So I'm really quickly gonna call this node group let's call it chromatic aberration. There we go. And now let's create the reflection. So now I'm gonna add a principal BSDF, which might not be necessary, but I like to use it because it gives me full control about the reflective shader. And then we want to add a texture, Voronoi texture. The Voronoi texture is going to give us some more, so let's check the color channel here. I'm pressing Ctrl-Shift-Click. If you have Node Wrangler enabled, which I recommend you do, then you can Ctrl-Shift-Click and go through these channels real quickly. So we're going to use the color here to create some nice additive effects to the reflection here. So the first thing we want to do with this is also add a gradient texture. Press Ctrl-T. And the gradient texture we actually want to put in the reflection node. How is this going to look? Pretty funky. So now we want to select our mapping node and our Voronoi texture and press Ctrl-0. That's going to put them in a mix node, right? And then we want to put this to 0.7 somewhat. Oh, and we want to put in the color. That's important. So now we get this weird kind of looking reflective Voronoi texture. It's going to help with our reflections here. I'm putting in a color ramp here just to get the black values and white values a little bit closer to each other. So now what we're going to do is add a color ramp. And we kind of want to create a nice rainbow in here, right? So how are we going to do this? We're going to start with, again, let's just put this on red. 1, right? I want to maybe put this on purple. And now what you're going to do is you're just going to go through this entire circle. There we go. Just going to show you the end result here. Just going blue here. So that, yeah, so it's red, yellow, green, blue, purple. You can already see kind of the effect this gives. Very funky, very new age. But this will help us create us a nice color effect. And now we want to add a color mix RGB. And we want to put this to add. So I'm a little bit cheating here. And then I'm gonna pull this into the base color. So now we got this funky looking surface. And with this slider we can control how much color there's actually gonna be in it. So now I want to change some things that might not be physically super correct, but they look nice. So the metallic I'm going to put to 0.8. I'm also going to put the specular a little bit higher, 0.6. The roughness I'm going to put to 0.15. You can already see kind of what this does with the shader. So now I want to add a weird effect to this. Follow along. So what I want to do is actually make a normal map node here and put this into the normal. And I want to put in the color of the Voronoi into the normal map. So that might be like, what are you doing? This actually creates a very weird effect that kinda, I know, I like it. But we can tone down the effect by putting the strength pretty low. To something like 0.2. Like if you turn it off, and there's nothing of it, but you can kind of see. You can also adjust this setting to your liking, but it adds a little bit of this randomness to the reflection. And what you can do is already put this normal into the chromatic aberration as well. So that's also gonna funk up that refraction a little bit, which gives it this very nice effect. So what we can do now is combine these two with a mix shader. and you can select how much reflectivity it has and how much light goes through it. And this gives this very nice crystal effect. I like to go one step beyond though. I'm gonna add an add shader here, and I'm gonna add the refraction to the reflection. But this effect is a little bit too much, right? So we can see here, it looks very nice, but it's a little bit too much, and we cannot control. I would like a factor for the add shader, like how much of it is being added. I don't know if that's possible at all under the hood, but one way to circumvent this is to actually combine these two. Put the mix shader on 0.5, and then in here I can go how much I want to go to the mix shader or how much I want to go to the add shader. Then I can also put this halfway. Then I kind of cheat this a little bit. So now we can actually go one step beyond and again group this. So select all the nodes and just group it. And then we can select some input nodes. The first thing, let's go full screen here for a second so you can see what I'm doing. First thing we want to connect is the IOR, the aberration, the roughness. We also want to input the scale of the Voronoi texture in here, the factor of our color, and last but not least, our mix at the end here. So of course we're gonna give this new names. So in our node panel here, our scale can be our Voronoi scale. This factor is gonna be our surface color. And that might actually be not a good name. Let's call it surface colorize. That might be better. And the last one, reflection strength. And now if we tap out of this, we have one nice node, which of course we can call crystal. Let's go back to our shader here. Now we can play around with these settings to get a look that we want. So we can decrease or increase how much index of refraction, so how much the light gets refracted through the shader. We can select how much aberration is actually happening. So on 0 there's none happening. But we of course want to make it a little bit funky. We can change the roughness of the refraction, but I like to keep it pretty low. We can change the Voronoi scale. You don't need like a lot of this on these kind of surfaces, but if you're working with simpler objects, you might want to push up this scale to get more detail like this, right? Then the colorize, you can put pretty high, you know, pretty low. I guess it's a pretty weird result, but you can play around with that, how much you want the surface to colorize. And then reflection strength, I'm gonna put this to halfway, it looks good. Now you can see, if you rotate it a little bit, if the light shines just right on it, it gives this very nice glare with the bloom settings. And yeah, it just looks amazing. And I used it for my latest artwork. If you want to see how I did that, you can click on the right top corner there. Yeah, so check that out. And if you want to see more tutorials like this, subscribe to the channel. So I want to thank all my Patreons for supporting me this month. I especially want to thank our Sir Knights of the Round Table, namely Sir Taylor Brown and Sir Doki, for supporting me. If you want to become an awesome resident or Sir Knight or even a Sir Governor of our awesome Bandite channel, check out the Patreon link down below or go to patreon.com/bandite. You can always support the channel by following me at Twitter at GentingGent or on Instagram with the same handle. Or just leave a like and a subscription down below, and you can press the bell button if you want to get notified. You know the drill. So anyway, my name is Cedric. This was a cool crystal tutorial. I hope you enjoyed, and see you next time. Thanks for watching. You want to say bye?
Bye.
Bye-bye.